Welcome. This is the second in the series of videos. We're going to focus on a very simple class, and I will show you how to separate the class into two files. One is called the specification file, the other is implementation. We will also talk about how to compile the implementation separately and how to combine the class into a main program. So let's begin with the file class_square.h. Before proceeding, let's just give you a picture of what the class looks like. This is the notation we will be using. Notice that we have a box and we have things in the windows. Everything in the window is visible once you have a variable of this type. So we have 6 things that are public. We have 2 constructors and 4 functions. The elements or the members of the class that are not public are private, and we have 1 variable that's private. So this is the picture. This is what the code looks like. I want to reiterate, the syntax for a class always has always has a header that says class, data type, a body basically, and the body is terminated by a closed brace and semicolon. And inside we have sections that are public, sections that are private. We saw in the diagram above that there are 6 elements or 6 members that are public and 1 member that is private. The private member is a variable, and we have 4 public functions and 2 constructors. Notice that all we have are function prototypes. So here's a prototype, here's a prototype, here's a prototype. So that all we're saying is that there will exist a data type called square. The data type will have 4 public functions, 2 constructors, and 1 variable. Notice that this does not tell you how those functions work. This file that we're looking at is called the specification. It does not attempt to tell you how the functions work, but they declare what will be present. The implementation is where we will show how all the functions work. The implementation file typically has the same name as the class, but the extension is .cpp because this file contains code that can be compiled and run later on. The first thing in the implementation file is that you must include the specification for the class. The specification for the class includes the variables that are private. Notice also that the implementation file only contains the functions and the constructors. It does not try to redeclare the variables because the declaration of the variables are given in the .h file. So we see this. A couple things to notice. One is all of these functions must be identified as belonging to the class or data type name square. We do that by tagging it. We have the class name followed by 2 colons, and that says, down here for example, down here it says that there is a void setSide function, but this function belongs to the class square. It is possible for your program to have a function called setSide that's independent of a class, and that function will not bear the tag square : : Alright? Now let's compile the class by itself. So let's get over here and just say compile it. Let's try this. If we say class square.cpp, let's see what's going to happen. What's going to happen is we got an error. It says undefined symbol main. It can't find a main. Is that correct? Yes, it's correct because the class implementation does not contain a main. So we must change the compile so that it compiles only. We're not trying to make an executable from it. So the compile statement has to say G++-C. If we take a look now and see what we have here, is we have a .o file that is the result of this compilation here. Now let's combine this into a main program. Let's take a look at what a main program would look like. Main square.cpp. Alright, here's the main program that uses the data type square. And it too has to include the specification, because the specification tells all the parts that can be called by the function. It contains the constructors and so forth. So what are we going to do? Let's take a quick look at this. I think the default constructor initializes the dimensions of the square to 0. The other constructor allows you to set the length of the square. So we have 3 square objects or variables, S1, S2. S1 is 0 by 0, okay? So you would expect its perimeter to be 0 and its area to be 0. For the second, we expect it to be seen also. What did we have here? And notice S3, we are printing out the original length, which is 25.5. And then with this function, oh, by the way, I'm going too fast. Notice that the public member functions of square include the computation of an area and a perimeter. So if I have the variable S1, I can calculate the perimeter of that square by saying S1 dot. And again, the dot gives me access to one of the member functions. All right. Which member functions? The ones that are public. All right. There's also a member function, if you recall. There's a member function that says, where is it? Set side. So I can change the length of the side once the program is running, which is exactly what we do here. I'm changing the length of the side from 25.5 to 22, and we would expect to get a different output for S3 afterwards. So let's go ahead and compile this. How do we compile it? Let's go and see what we said here. We compile the main program. We compile using this command. Notice that I have to recompile the CPP, the class implementation file, or I can use the .o file that was produced before. So let's go ahead and do it this way and see what we have. And now we're going to run it. It's qr.run. And notice that S3 was 22.5, now it's 22, etc. So with that, we're going to stop.